For years, there's been an observation that's been repeated all too often when it comes to Taehyung and Jungkook. At multiple events, recordings, and performances, you can notice how attentive the group staff is to any interaction between them. When Taehyung and Jungkook are together, the atmosphere seems to change. Whether backstage, during rehearsals, or during live broadcasts, their connection is palpable. These aren't isolated gestures or brief moments, but a consistency that persists over time. Every time the staff intervenes, whether with a glance, a call to attention, or a direct action to separate them, it's done with an urgency that demonstrates that something they don't want to show is happening. It's not just that they're being physically separated, but the message they're sending: they shouldn't be this close for so long. What's interesting is that despite this, they persist. When they're separated, they often reunite minutes later, or continue looking at each other from afar. There's a clear intention to stay together, even when the environment tries to do the opposite. This goes beyond a simple professional bond. There's an emotional insistence that can't be avoided. Taehyung's gestures toward Jungkook and vice versa aren't intended to entertain an audience. They're natural, unfiltered actions that spring from a trust and closeness that aren't manufactured on camera. And while the staff may try, the spark between them isn't easy to control. They've shown that their connection doesn't depend on circumstances. Even when obstacles arise, their way of staying together is firm and direct. When someone has nothing to hide, there's no need to intervene. But in the case of Taehyung and Jungkook, every time they share an overly intense moment, a censure reaction is triggered. This not only reinforces the authenticity of their bond, but also makes it clear that their relationship carries weight far beyond fan service. Control is only applied when there's something real that can be clearly seen. And what you see, even in those few seconds, is a connection that has been built over the years, one that remains intact in front of the cameras and that not even the staff has been able to silence. Jungkook and Taehyung don't rely on any script to show what they share. What you see between them isn't an act or something prepared. They do it because it comes naturally to them. In one of the most discussed videos by Taehyung fans, you can see Jungkook fixing Taehyung's jacket. He doesn't do it to look good in front of anyone. He does it because he cares about Taehyung's comfort. The detail is clear. Jungkook doesn't hesitate. He approaches and straightens Taehyung's clothes without expecting anything in return. And what happens next also makes sense. Taehyung not only accepts the gesture, but reacts with a smile that mixes shyness and joy. That response shows how comfortable he feels when Jungkook is around. There's a connection between them that goes beyond what is visible. And it shows because they don't need to speak to understand each other. Their gestures, their body language, and their way of being together show that what they have is something strong. On other occasions, they're also seen holding hands, giving each other massages, or walking together in unison. Each of these moments has a pattern. There's always care, attention, and a unique way of being together. This type of attitude isn't repeated with other members of the group. It's unique to Jungkook and Taehyung. And anyone who watches without distractions knows this. What's clear is that they do it in all kinds of situations, both when there are cameras and when they're more relaxed and no one is filming them directly. There's a scene in which Taehyung seems somewhat uncomfortable when another man takes his hand. At that instant, his gaze quickly shifts to Jungkook. He doesn't need to say anything, his expression shows it all. His eyes search for a reaction, as if he knows that this kind of contact isn't common or comfortable for him. And right at that moment, Jungkook shows a silent but clear reaction, a gesture that many recognize as jealousy. He doesn't move abruptly or say a word, but his face reflects discomfort. This isn't something that happens by chance. After that contact, Taehyung returns to Jungkook. He returns to his side without much thought. As he does, his body cleaves to him, and he wraps his arm around his waist and stays there. This gesture shows something that doesn't need to be explained. Instead of staying somewhere else, Taehyung seeks to be right with the one who gives him security. This closeness isn't something acted or forced. It's a natural reaction, a need to be with the one person who truly makes them feel calm. When two people are connected, their body language shows it without words. And in this case, Taehyung and Jungkook have a way of expressing themselves without speaking. Every glance, every touch, and every movement says something deeper. They're used to touching each other, protecting each other, and returning to each other in moments of need. The way they behave together isn't an imitation of something they saw, nor a strategy. It's simply their way of being. When someone like Taehyung feels nervous, he doesn't hide it with laughter or avoid it, he leans toward the one who calms him. And that person is Jungkook. One of the most striking characteristics of Taehyung and Jungkook's relationship is how they communicate without words. They don't need to say anything to understand what they're feeling or thinking. In scenes where there's no sound, where the camera only shows a glance or a light touch on the arm, everything necessary is already conveyed. This isn't a forced performance, it's a language that has formed over time and reveals a solid, silent, and constant relationship. In many videos, we can see how they look at each other with an attention that's unseen in others. These aren't empty or fleeting glances, they are prolonged, full of meaning, and often end in a smile that only they understand. These expressions don't happen by chance or are programmed according to a script. They occur in natural moments, when they're not even the center of the audience's attention. This kind of interaction reveals that what exists between them isn't supported by the presence of cameras, but by what they feel. You can also see how naturally they touch each other. Sometimes with a gentle touch on the back, other times with a short but strong hug. These actions aren't repeated with the rest of the group, nor do they have the same level of intensity or frequency. And when the environment allows it, they tend to seek out those spaces where they can spend time together. At many public events, even when surrounded by other people, their bodies tend to lean toward each other, as if there were an internal force drawing them closer. Another sign of this silent communication is how they understand each other in awkward situations. If one of them seems to be in a difficult or uncomfortable position, the other reacts without needing to say anything. This has been seen when Taehyung protects Jungkook with a hand on his back, or when Jungkook quickly intervenes if he notices something strange in someone's behavior toward Taehyung. This automatic reaction only occurs when there is a very strong emotional connection, which allows them to read each other's state without any clear signal. There are many types of closeness, but the one seen between Taehyung and Jungkook has a depth that isn't often seen. The most obvious thing isn't just what they do when they're together in front of the cameras. The most important thing happens when there's no need to show off, and yet they do it anyway. The moments before going on stage are proof of that. There are recordings where you can see how one approaches the other, speaks calmly, reassures them with gestures, and prepares them emotionally for what's to come. This preparation isn't just professional. It's personal. Jungkook and Taehyung don't act as if they're playing a role. They seek each other out, calm each other down, listen to each other, and understand each other. It's not about one consoling the other because they're nervous. It's about a relationship where both are clear about what the other's presence means. The eye contact they share also speaks for itself. It's not just any old look. It conveys tranquility and mutual understanding. During events, award ceremonies, and interviews, this dynamic is repeated. One is always attentive to the other's movements. If Taehyung changes his expression, Jungkook notices. If Jungkook looks tired, Taehyung leans closer. That kind of attention isn't automatic. It's the result of a strong connection that is formed over time. Many Taehyung fans emphasize that there are things that can't be explained with words. And that happens with the actions they share when they're together. From small details like a touch on the arm or a smile, to more pronounced actions like shielding themselves from the flashes or looking for each other during choreography. Even in moments where there are many eyes on them, they manage to create their own space where only what happens between them matters. In many videos, a clear pattern is repeated. Taehyung and Jungkook don't need to act or follow a script to show their true selves. Their way of being together is marked by actions that occur effortlessly, not meant to attract attention. When they're close, there's physical contact without hesitation or tension. Jungkook often takes the initiative, and Taehyung responds naturally, as if his body already knows what's coming next. One thing always happens: they're by each other's side. If for some reason they're separated, the reunion comes quickly. And when they're close again, it's with contact. Whether it's a hand on a waist, an arm around the other, or just a sustained gaze, each of these actions marks a kind of routine that never breaks. For many Taehyung fans, this is one of the clearest signs that their bond isn't based on coincidence. When two people repeat the same gestures for years, it's because those gestures are part of how they live. Furthermore, it's worth noting that their gestures aren't meant to be grand or exaggerated. They're not made for the cameras, nor to surprise the audience. What they do even in small moments, before performances, backstage, when they don't expect to be recorded. In those moments, their connection becomes more clear. It's when Taehyung looks for Jungkook with his eyes, when he touches him without thinking, when he settles down next to him without needing permission. And Jungkook, for his part, responds by calming him, guiding him, or simply letting him be by his side. These details show that their bond goes beyond the visible. It's not based on acting, nor on externals. They don't seek to pretend anything. They behave like two people who no longer need to confirm what they feel, because they live it all the time. And this is also evident in the way they take care of each other. They don't interrupt each other, they don't withdraw without reason, they don't abruptly break contact. Everything they do makes sense. They don't need to say it, their way of acting makes it clear.